Well, Howard Woodhouse has been involved in education for more than 5 decades. He taught high school for a time, but he's been a professor of education at several universities. He retired from the University of Saskatchewan 3 years ago. Now, in those 50-plus years, Professor Woodhouse has seen trends in education come and go, but what he's seeing lately has made him want to look more closely at how we teach our teachers. He set out to examine teacher education in Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom, and what he's found might surprise you. Woodhouse has recently written a book called Critical Reflections on Teacher Education, and he joins us by phone now to tell us more. Hello, Professor Woodhouse.
Yes.
Professor, briefly tell us about your book, and who is it really for?
Yeah, well, the book was written during COVID, but it was as a bigger project than that, and it's written for teachers and future teachers and parents and administrators and anyone concerned with the state of education in general and its relationship, I guess, to democracy and to the climate crisis. So big questions.
What prompted you to want to do a comparison of teacher education in these 3 countries?
Because I found that teachers in all 3 countries are facing a similar problem, and that is that they have so many bureaucratic tasks to perform that they're less and less able to exercise their professional judgment, their qualified and informed judgment about what it is that they're teaching, what the goals of their teaching are to be, and to take care of the learning needs and the capacities of their students. And so as a result of that, if you like, their professional autonomy is being eroded.
And how does that relate to teacher education?
Good question. I think that teacher education could do a much better job of educating future teachers. If I can be somewhat specific, I retired from the University of Saskatchewan more than 3 years ago now, and since I retired, there has been no course taught in ethics and education to future teachers. It is being taught in the 2 Indigenous teacher education programs, but it's not being taught in widespread in the teacher education program in general. And that compares with the fact that in other professional faculties at the University of Saskatchewan, law, medicine, nursing, engineering, there are required courses in ethics for those future professionals. So at a time when teachers are facing classrooms that are full of many different ethical systems and different ethnic groups, I think that a course in ethics is vital, and it's not being taught here at the University of Saskatchewan at the moment, but I'm hopeful that with a new dean that's coming in a couple of months, that maybe this will change, and I hope very much that it will.
Now, when you looked at teacher education in the 3 countries, how did Canada stack up generally compared to the UK and the US?
Well, there is a real problem I would say in general, and this may surprise people to hear this, I think that Canada is doing actually pretty well for a number of reasons. I'll just take one of those, and that is that in the 2 other countries, in the UK, especially in England, and in the many states in the United States, there is a regime of standardized testing. Now, whatever the nature of those tests are, one of the main problems is the way in which they're used, and they're often used in what's called high-stakes testing, and the purpose of high-stakes testing is to either defund or underfund those schools that are deemed to be not performing well by means of the metrics that are measured in terms of standardized tests and other metrics as well. And this affects, of course, mostly students from inner city schools, from working class and ethnic communities, and of course from indigenous communities as well, when it's being used here in Canada, for example, in Alberta and also for a while in Ontario. It affects those indigenous students badly, because it is rather different from the ways in which they're used to learn.
You mentioned your concern over lack of a formal ethics course in teacher education here in Saskatchewan, at any rate.
Oh, yeah.
What more do you think we could do currently training teachers? What other concerns do you have about the current training of teachers in Canada?
Yeah, if I can just correct that slightly. My concern is at the University of Saskatchewan. I know that at the University of Regina there are courses that are integrated in ethics and law throughout the curriculum, and that's the case also at the University of Alberta and the University of Calgary. So my concern is focused actually on the University of Saskatchewan. What other things do I think could be done? I think that, as I said, introducing students to the idea that they are professionals, and in the sense that they are capable of exercising their judgment when it comes to classroom situations that may be difficult or problematical. The problem is, as I've mentioned, that right now so much of their autonomy to do that is taken away by pressures from outside the classroom, whether it's from government or other outside agencies.
Do you see reason for hope?
Yes, indeed. There's always reason for hope. I could say two quick things about this. One is I've seen personally in schools in Saskatoon and elsewhere the use of school gardens where students learn to plant, cultivate, harvest, and then cook the vegetables that they've been growing for the entire school. So they learn in doing that a respect for nature and also for themselves as capable beings, and they learn actually interdisciplinary knowledge in doing that in terms of, for example, biology, chemistry, and mathematics. So that's one thing. The other thing that I really am hopeful about is the worldwide movement for philosophy for children, which enables young students to begin to discuss issues, both ethical and logical, in a reasonable and respectful way in which they learn to respect the views of others. And they do this through exposure to storytelling, both their own stories and stories that they learn from specific textual books. So those two things, among others, give me great hope. All
right. Professor Woodhouse, thank you so much for the conversation.
Oh, well, thank you, Garth. I really appreciate it.
Howard Woodhouse is a professor emeritus at the University of Saskatchewan's Department of Education. His new book is called Critical Reflections on Teacher Education.